Hi, everyone. For the record, my name is Andrea Campbell. I'm the District 4 City Councilor. I'm also the chair of the Boston City Council's Committee on Public Safety and Criminal Justice. I don't think we are joined by, let me just make sure, any counselors, but I will acknowledge them if any colleagues when they do arrive. I want to thank everyone from the administration and the various departments for being here this morning. I want to remind folks that this is a public hearing. It is being recorded and will be rebroadcast on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, FiOS Channel 964. It's also being live streamed at boston.gov/City Council TV. We will take public testimony, so if folks are interested in publicly in testifying, obviously via Zoom, they can do so at the end of the hearing. If you want to submit written testimony, you can do so at ccc.ps@boston.gov. Today's hearing covers several dockets. I will read them and then we'll review each one separately. The first is docket 0845 SSYI. It's a message in order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend the amount of $1,150,000 in the form of a grant for a comprehensive interagency strategy that connects law enforcement, employment, education, public health, and youth development agencies to reduce youth violence in the Commonwealth. This additional funding increases the total grant to $2,300,000 over 2 years, and it's awarded by the Massachusetts Executive Office of Health and Human Services, and it's administered by the Police Department, and it will fund FY 2022 and FY 23 Safe and Successful Youth Initiative. The next docket is docket 0954 for 911 services. It's a message in order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend $4 million in the form of a grant for FY 22 public safety answering point support and incentive grant. It's awarded also by the Massachusetts Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, and it's administered by the Police Department, and it funds costs associated with providing enhanced 911 services. The next grant is docket 0956. It's a message in order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend an amount of $399,418.73. It's a grant called the FY 22 State 911 Training Grant, and it's also awarded by the Massachusetts Executive Office of Public Safety and Security and administered by the Police Department. The next docket is docket 1012, and this is a message in order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend an amount of $1,500,000. It's a grant called Securing the Cities. It's awarded by the United States Department of Homeland Security, and it's administered by the Police Department. This is year 2 of this funding. It enhances the ability of the United States and, of course, the city to detect and prevent terrorist attacks and other high consequence events utilizing nuclear or other radiological materials that pose a threat to Homeland Security, particularly in high-risk urban areas. And then lastly, we have docket 1036, which is addressing DNA backlog. It's a message in order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend, $239,254. And this is awarded by the United States Department of Justice. A lot of grants, but I'm happy to be here with each and every one of you. Let me just double check to make sure I'm not missing any colleagues. I don't think so. So if other colleagues join, I will acknowledge them as they come. It's great to see all of you. Let's first start with the first docket, and this is docket 0845. This is SSYI. I know there are several folks in administration who are testifying on this grant, so I will let you all take it away. And if you can, before you testify, state your name and your title for the record, that would be great. Frank, is that you starting?
Yes, Madam Chair. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you. My name is Frank DeLuca. I'm the SSYI Program Coordinator working out of the Boston Police Department's Office of Research and Development, and I'm also the SSYI lead. The City of Boston's been awarded $1.15 million in grant funding from the Massachusetts Executive Office of Health and Human Services to support its safe and Successful Youth Initiative, SSYI, for fiscal year 2022. And acting as grantee and administering agency, the Boston Police Department works with community coalitions to implement a combined public health and public safety effort to eliminate youth violence in the city of Boston. SSYI focuses on proven risk young adults between the ages of 17 and 24 who, through identification by the Boston Police Department's Youth Violence Task Force and other partnering law enforcement agencies, are deemed most likely to be perpetrators or victims of shooting or stabbing violence. The Boston Police Department has entered into agreement with the Boston Public Health Commission to be the lead agency for SSYI, which manages and coordinates delivery of transitional services by various community-based organizations to those identified proven risk young adults. With the service providers, the Health Commission delivers a continuum of street outreach and engagement, needs assessment and evaluation, intensive case management, behavioral health counseling, and employment and education services. Through these services, the SSYI Boston program engages our proven risk young adults and redirects them away from the life of continually contributing to street violence and towards a positive pro-social alternative. And with that, if you'd like, Madam Chair, I can pass on to our SSYI Program Director at this point. That's Roy Martin.
That'd be great. Thank you, Frank. Hi, Roy. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you. I really, am appearing in case there were any questions. I know we've presented multiple times in front of the council. And so, Frank did a good job at laying out who we are and what we do. There's a couple of points, since I have the opportunity, that I'd like to add, which is, clearly we all suffered during the pandemic, but SSY, we never broke stride throughout the pandemic, and so we stayed operational. In fact, we had our best year since the inception of the program. So highest enrollment, highest engagement, and service delivery. So, we plan on having a similar, if not better year this year as well. And, we're very thankful for all the partnerships that have been supportive to the program's goals and ambitions. But if there are any particular questions, myself and Allison Bale are here to answer those.
Thank you. That was actually one of my questions with respect to COVID and how the program was handling that. So that's great to hear, and appreciate the work you all are doing and continue to do on these critical issues. What would be helpful is I did get a breakdown for all of the grants, and I really appreciate that because I'm going to pass it on to council colleagues. But if for SSYI, if there are more details around the number of folks served, the list of organizations that are receiving resources that you're partnering with, as well as any data that would be useful, what metrics were you using to determine that this was indeed the best year? You can talk about that now, but if you could submit some of that in writing post this hearing, that would be great.
Absolutely. So we are in partnership with 7 community-based agencies. That's Youth Options Unlimited, Mission Safe, More Than Words, Project Right, Strive, Inner City Weightlifting, and Notre Dame Educational Complex. So those are our official relationships, as well as the in-kind relationships, such as, a lot of our commission-based programs like, at BMC via the Bureau of Substance Abuse, Homeless Services. So we certainly try to avail ourselves of everything in kind, and we're also in contract with the Department of Psychiatry at Boston Medical Center, although that contract is not administered through the Public Health Commission, it's through research and development, but that is also one of our contracts as well. And so in terms of our enrollment numbers, so I believe the previous fiscal year, we had 118 individuals enrolled. And last year, we had 122 individuals enrolled. And so that every city is asked to project a target amount based off who you anticipate outreaching to, and then who's going to eventually enroll. And so we surpassed 80% of that target number, but we can certainly send you, what those metrics are and particular details about how those services are broken down as well. So, I know we had 60 individuals in education, 77 in employment, 76 in behavioral health. And, those numbers are, pretty much those are the categories and buckets that we capture. And that's consistent with every SSY city across the state. And the numbers in the previous year were 54 in education, 54 in employment as well, 65 in behavioral health. And so those are the areas that we're all asked to contract and form some consistent relationship with. And so that's pretty much where we ended up at year's end.
That's very helpful. Thank you. And we'll look for that follow-up as well. And just for context and clarity, you're not actually going out and sort of targeting, thousands of people. Are you still pulling from that list of roughly 300 or so folks or is it a different list? Is it a different sort of, how are you? Because I remember at one point it was like 300 individuals on a list, right, Roy? So I'm just curious, where you're pulling from?
Thank you. So for the most part, the mindset is that there will be roughly about 3,000 or so individuals in the city of Boston who would fit our profile. And so what we try and do is, we try to focus on a number of 300, 10%, because that would be a super overwhelming. 3,000 is too overwhelming for any program. And then the thought is, in all the categories that we're focusing on, if you focus on 10% of that population, could you correspondingly reduce numbers in certain categories, Part 1 crime categories, by 10%? And so for the most part, we get referrals. We're not operating off of a list. And so we get referrals from probation, parole, DYS, DOC, House of Correction, as well as the county jail. And we could get referrals from the gang unit as well. And so we do have a cap, like where do we think we're gonna start busting at the seams? And so 300 or so is around the outreach number. And of that number, we anticipate, that there's gonna be some individuals that we're never gonna find, some individuals that we are in contact that may express total unwillingness, but of the successful contacts, the 135 is the 100% number for the city of Boston. And so we ended up at 122 of potentially 135, which we think we're going to exceed this year.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to add anything with respect to that grant before I move on to the next one? All right, thank you guys. What I'll do is any additional information, I'll make sure that council colleagues get it. And of course, we'll give a summary at the next council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, I'm going to move on. Docket, which is 0954, which is 911 services. Chris, is that you that's testifying? Perfect.
Yes.
Good to see you.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Nice to see you. So this docket is the annual Psap Support Incentive Grant. It's a formula-based grant that the city receives. This year, it's in the amount of $4 million. It's awarded by the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, the State 911 Department. This grant helps us defray the costs of providing enhanced 911 service to the city of Boston. It provides support for our computer-aided dispatch system, the maintenance agreement for that. It also provides support for chairs and workstations and things of that nature that normally would be, that helps defray it so we don't have to be looking for the city to pick up those costs. We also are allowed to help defray a lot of our personnel costs through that grant. So it does subsidize some of the costs of the salaries for the 911 enhanced telecommunicators that work here at police headquarters. And it also covers fire and EMS as well. So this is all three agencies share in this grant. It's a formula-based grant. It's based on call volume and population. And it's an annual grant.
Perfect. And I know you're always looking for more resources.
We are, especially these times. Yeah.
So this is helpful. Are you testifying as well on docket 0956, which is the
Yes.
911 staff? Okay, you can talk about that one too.
Okay, so that particular grant, that is earmarked for training. So that grant is not formula-based. It's based on need, and it helps us defray the costs of training our 911 public safety telecommunicators at the police, fire, and EMS communications centers. The grant, the state requires a minimum of 16 hours continuing education for all of our public safety telecommunicators. So the grant fully funds that requirement, and it also helps us do other electives and continuing education classes as needed. It pays for both straight time or overtime if needed to recover a shift for folks to attend those trainings. And it also pays for training materials for the training. And that's an annual grant as well.
This is helpful. Thank you. Does anyone else want to add anything on docket 0954 or docket 0956? Okay. Chris, thank you so much. And of course, thank you to you and your team for all the work you do every day. I know how busy you are, so thank you.
Thank you for your support, Madam Chair.
Okay, I will move on to docket 1012, which is the Securing the Cities grant. I'm not sure who was testifying on that one. Maria, is that you? Oh, Conley, is that you? Testifying?
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, Madam Chair. How are you?
Great, great. Good to see you.
Good to see you again. So I was going to open it up and just talk about what I had testified last time about the Securing the Cities. We had some benchmarks that you had asked us to meet, more specifically in regards to transparency. And I just wanted to let you know that we did get out the press release. It went out on June 29th from BPD News. And we also did establish a web page linked to the City of Boston through BPD News. And on that web page, there is a public records request and a link to the press release. And one of the other benchmarks was to hire a program manager for this job. And we did so, and I'd like to introduce him now. His name is Anthony Rizzo. He comes from corporate counsel. He was a legal advisor for the City of Boston Police Department prior. So we thought it was great to tap into his brain power of understanding MOUs, understanding transparency, just having a really good perspective on how to ensure when you're partnering with agencies as well as federal and state partners to make sure that everything goes seamless. So I'd like to turn it over to him now to let him introduce himself and tell you about his program management style.
That's great. Thank you.
Good morning,
Thank you,
Madam
ma'am.
Good morning.
Thank you. Again, as the captain said, my name is Tony Rizzo. I am the program manager for the Securing the Cities grant. The Securing the Cities grant is a 5-year federally funded grant program from the Department of Homeland Security, the Countering Weapons of Mass Destruction Office. The mission is to prevent the successful possession, movement, deployment of a nuclear or radiological weapon and any component materials by an adversary within the United States. The goal of the program is to develop and enhance sustainable radiological and nuclear detection capabilities among all the participating partners in the region. I can speak a little bit more to the partners as well as that equipment. The Boston Police Department is the lead agency with 9 other city and state agencies participating as principal partners at this time. The initial award was $2 million granted to the department last year on September 11, 2020. But what we're here for today is the second award of $1.5 million that was awarded to the Boston Police Department for the budget period of August 1st, 2021 through July 31st of 2022. Madam Chair, that $1.5 million would be allotted to the purchase of detection equipment and backfill and overtime for all personnel who receive training on the equipment, as well as the salary of the program manager. In particular, the equipment that would be purchased, it's really just 3 pieces of equipment that would be purchased and 4 pieces of equipment that personnel would receive training on. The equipment is backpack detection devices and mobile detection devices. They really just allow for the detection of radioactive materials in public areas in large crowds or high-profile events. It would also include a 3rd piece of equipment that is a radioisotope identification device, which is really just an instrument that's designed to identify radioactive materials in order to distinguish between non-threatening radioactive materials such as industrial or medical or high-level threats. So it's really just to determine if there is any sort of an issue, if an adjudication would even be necessary for the police to intervene. All personnel who receive this equipment will receive anywhere between 4 to 16 hours of training in order to establish proficiency with the devices. And really that time just depends on what the piece of equipment is and how intricate it is. Memorandums of agreement would be executed before any equipment or funds are transferred from the Boston Police Department to other participating partners. Again, this is the 2nd year of funding that the City of Boston has received for the program. The city can anticipate 3 more years of funding through the program. The only other piece of equipment is really just a pager-sized device known as a personal radiation detector that officers or troopers would wear on their belts in order to indicate whether or not there is radiation in that area. That equipment is transferred directly from DHS to the department, so funds are not expended on it. But again, nobody will be utilizing the equipment without training on it, so training will be paid for, or backfill and overtime for the training will come out of the funding. And with that, if you have any questions for me.
I don't actually. Thank you, Tony. That was more thorough than I expected. So I appreciate the level of detail. And I know you guys also sent over details in writing that I could pass on to other colleagues. So I appreciate that very much. And great to see you. And Connolly, thank you. And great to see you as well. Maria, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important that Anthony mentions the number of partners, because this is a regional effort and it seems like a huge amount of money, but it's actually our management of the whole region in terms of this issue. So, thanks.
I got that. That's right. Thank you, Maria. That's important. Anyone else want to add anything on this particular docket? All right. Thank you very much.
Sure.
And now we're moving on to our last docket, which I know we've received before. This is docket 1036, having to do a DNA capacity. Kevin, are you testifying on this one?
I am. Hello, Madam Chair. How are you? Nice to meet you. My name is Kevin Lorette. I work in forensics here at the Boston Police Department. The award is for a total of $239,000, and it's not a new grant. It's a continuation of existing funding that we've had. It supports the ongoing work being completed by the DNA section in the crime lab. So it's kind of critical for us to continue to receive this funds from the NIJ. It supports the work being done by our existing grant-funded criminalists. They're meeting the demands of the unit, and they're helping to reduce the backlog of cases. The ability to keep these positions will allow us to maintain our existing service for the city. The funds we have earmarked here are for DNA testing supplies. So we do have 2 criminalists. So there's a DNA criminalist and there's a criminalistics criminalist, so they kind of both work in tandem. So the criminalistics person will screen evidence as it comes in the lab, and the DNA criminalist will work on the extraction and amplification, so do the DNA side of things. So it's 2 people being added into our testing protocols. And we're going to be buying DNA supplies that go along with that. So with the extra bodies, we're going to need to have funds to supply them with the supplies that they need to do the testing. There is some overtime money in there as well. So for people that need to work on stuff to chip away at the backlog off hours. And I think that's $11,000. And the other funding is approximately $19,000, and it's to support continuing education. So we are an accredited lab, and one of the mandates of the accreditation is that DNA staff in particular need to receive continuing education. And this funding allows them to travel to wherever it may be to go to a particular training. So Promega, there's different companies that supply the training because technology is always changing in DNA as well. So this allows them to travel, it covers the cost of all their travel, hotel, flights, for anything that they need to do. So all of our DNA analysts that require that training will have the opportunity to attend.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you for the breakdown. Just one quick question. What's the current backlog look like? If you have specific numbers on that, that would be helpful.
So backlog is traditionally, like it can be measured in different ways. For the purposes of this grant, it's a case that has been kind of in limbo for greater than 30 days. So it's come in, it hasn't been assigned, and 30 days has passed. And I believe this grant is from FY20, so the numbers have probably changed a little bit. So thankfully, I have good news. At the time of application of the grant, I believe the turnaround or the untested cases at the time the backlog was at 557. And I spoke with our the head of our DNA unit here. And as of June 21, it was down to 323 cases. So
very helpful.
Down, which is great.
Thank you. And I will make sure to pass on the breakdowns to council colleagues.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to testify in this particular grant? Okay, thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
I think that's it, unless anyone wants to add anything. I will see if we have anyone for public testimony, which I don't think so. But Carrie or Ron, do we have anyone for public testimony? I'm assuming that's a no.
No, we don't.
Awesome. Thank you, Ron. All right. Well, I will make sure that council colleagues get the updates and details with respect to each of these dockets. We will review them at the next council meeting. Thank you all, of course, for taking time this morning and providing detail. Keep up the great work. Appreciate each and every one of you. Have a wonderful day. And this hearing is adjourned. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.